Mm. Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered call-in show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the Unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy. Let's see. I don't have that up on interview, but I just wanted to say hello to everyone. How are y'all doing? Today, I just showed that picture real quick of Dr. Martin Luther King. If you don't know me, my name is Devon Morris. This is the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered call-in show, and we actually talk about Agile, Scrum, sometimes a little bit of entrepreneurship. I guess will happen sometimes, but the idea is that we're here to answer your questions, and it's really a call-in show. But today is a different kind of day with all the things that have happened in the past couple weeks, and then you look at what today is. Today is the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King's actual birthday. His birthday was this past Friday, I do believe. And so it's one of those days that we just kind of take back as a guy who took a nonviolent stance, who kind of borrowed that from Gandhi and decided to use that. And the importance of Dr. Martin Luther King in a time like now goes without saying. It is one of those things where we want to definitely celebrate times like this, and we know it's that holiday time frame, and we know people aren't going to really be checked in too much, but I couldn't bring this day without bringing up the man to celebrate him on this day. And for me, it's a day to put in to be on the grind even more in terms of changing how the world is, especially in the times that we're having right now. So hopefully you've done something amazing today with your family. If you had time off, it's not normally a bank holiday. There's some organizations that actually do take this day off, but there's a lot that don't. I mean, my garbage was actually picked up, so obviously there were people working today. So if you had to go to work, hopefully people honored the man in some kind of way. So let's talk about this, so then we at least have an idea of how this thing works. First and foremost, this is a call-in show, and the way you call in is by hitting that Discord channel that you see right there below me. Okay. Now, the idea is that you don't have to call in. You don't. You can just jump on and watch the show. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything more than that, okay? But the idea is that if you join in and you have a question, you need to jump on and get into the Discord channel. Now, when you actually get onto that Discord channel, the idea, and let me get my bit because I'm hearing that I'm not being heard. So let me increase my volume, okay? So hopefully that's better. I'll get my microphone a little closer. Can't hear me on YouTube. Okay. Let's see. Let me switch mics. Let's see. I am using a different microphone, so let me switch it over to the different microphone as my input. And hopefully this hiccup is a little bit better now, and you can actually hear me to some degree. If you can hear me, that's a good thing. So I'll let people out there let me know in the comments if you can actually hear me. If you can, then that's a plus. If you can't, then that's something we need to deal with in one way, shape, or another. Okay. That being said, I don't see anything that warrants this being any different. I just want to make sure that we're kind of good to go on that. So I'm going to assume that everything is continuing to go fine. You know, having a hiccup, I guess, on Martin Luther King's birthday is the way to do things. And I see that people can hear me at this point. So sorry about earlier. So let me go ahead and pull back a little bit. I'm actually using my headset now, so and then I can make sure. Someone told me that I walk around a lot, so we're going to use the headset right now. Now, as I was stating earlier, the way this show works is that you actually call in if you have a question. And it's not really a call in show, it's digital. So you actually join our Discord channel. And when you join our Discord channel, what will happen is you actually join the waiting room, and ultimately one of our moderators will work with you to get you on the actual live to ask your question. Okay. This week, I'm just expecting to be a lot more relaxed. Now, what I was saying earlier when people couldn't hear me, I apologize about that. But I want to send shout outs to Dr. Martin Luther King's family, Dr. Martin Luther King, for everything that's happened, putting us in a position that we're in today, thinking about the Civil Rights Acts and all those different things that happened that actually has had a major impact on probably every single culture that exists. Because even if you are the majority culture here, um, the majority culture women benefits from the actual Civil Rights Act and other things like that. So you are actually benefiting from some of the things that he's done over time. So that's a wonderful and good thing. Um, so that being said, we do have someone here to ask a question. So I am going to move straight into the asking questions part, and then we will go from there. Okay. So, welcome, 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 welcome. I see myself on both sides, so let me try this one more time. Let me pull her in. Boom. There we go. Okay. So, another thing I want to let you all know that's really, really simple is that if you don't want to show your video, that's okay. It is one of those things where we're not requiring anyone to show their video. If you want to be kind of anonymous, you can be. We just will show your name, and that'll be really it. So, welcome, 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 welcome to the show. You have a question, Mesa, Mesa. I'm pronouncing that correctly, right?
Maisa, yeah. Hi, Devon. I'm so happy to be on the show. I have a question. I recently got my Scrum certification,
Hmm.
and I got a job offer as a Scrum Master. So I will be joining a new team. As a Scrum Master, what are the first things or first steps that I can do to, build a trust with my team, I guess, and motivate them in the future?
Okay, that's a good question. Um, the first thing I would say to you is there is a guy, he's another certified Scrum trainer. He goes by the name of Michael James, and he wrote a Scrum Master guide. It's a little guide that gives you tips on what you should do beginning as a Scrum Master. Okay. And in that guide, it has questions, things you should think about, all kinds of stuff like that. If I go to the basics of you going into a brand new environment, you're brand new to the culture, you're brand new to the team, you're the outsider at this point, then what I would say to you is get to know the team. As a new Scrum Master, it is your job to basically make sure people are kind of doing Scrum. Help them do Scrum, enable them to do Scrum, support them in terms of doing Scrum. But you're the outsider at this point. And in being the outsider, one of the biggest things that you need to do is just kind of start getting to know the individuals on the team. That team has, if you have a team that already existed, they have a history. And one of the things that you want to do is definitely respect their history, respect the things that they've been through, because if you don't, that can cause bigger issues. Now, I remember when I first started at a company, and I was a contractor coming into an organization that had 15 other coaches that existed that I assumed was more experienced than me. Pretty much what I did is I came in and I ran a sprint zero. Now, what is a sprint zero? A sprint zero is preparation for sprint one through N. It's really all it really is. Preparation for sprint one through N. You will get into a sprint zero and you will do the things to help you get set up, like understand your definition of done. Work with the team to make sure that that happens. The organization might have some requirements for you. So the organization might have some documents that they want you to start filling out, like a design document. They may even want you to do some semblance of a requirements document or build some plan. You can actually start these things in Sprint Zero, and start these things so and then you can actually begin that process of getting things ready and queued up to start Sprint One. Um, Also, that product backlog and the building of that product backlog becomes your biggest thing. One of the things you want to do is that very first sprint, you want to try to get things as ready as possible in that product backlog for you to be able to commit to enough items for the team to be able to move forward. So a lot of times, even if I'm starting on a Monday and I'm actually going to get the team going on a Wednesday, I will start off with that sprint zero, and then for a couple days just start getting everything together, so and then we can have a good start or a good sprint planning. Having a good sprint planning is actually going to help you moving forward because that's going to give you an opportunity to get to know the team and build trust with the team. Now, in building trust with the team while you're in sprint zero, I would definitely recommend that you do some team building. Uh, Play some games, get to know them better. Maybe have, a time frame where you can have an activity that's not necessarily associated work, where you can actually get to know the individuals that exist on the team. If there are other scrum masters in the building, if there are other project managers, other process kind of people, I would be asking them about the culture and what kind of exists in the culture, to get an idea of what I should be doing, whose toes I'm stepping on. Um, I also want to get an idea of the political landscape. The political landscape is going to be something that you will probably have to navigate. So I would definitely be working through that and doing all these things just to kind of get myself started, just to kind of get the team going, just to kind of get the team ready. Now, you can run into some resistance, no question. You might be the one that's coming to a team that is not so keen on Scrum, or you might have an individual that is a tech lead or just a leader in general that had a bad experience with Scrum in the past. You're gonna have to find ways to deal with that, address that, and then if the team hasn't been trained, I'm going to train them. I'm going to give them an idea what Scrum is and how we should move forward with Scrum. Make sure that we all have the same basic understanding. Now, I want the same basic understanding because it's really hard for me to hold people accountable to something I that we all think of a little bit differently. You don't know what they know in terms of Scrum or what they've been trained before, or the organization may have certain specific things that they want you to do related to Scrum because everybody's doing Scrum, but so it becomes that time for you to kind of get yourself ready, get yourself started, so and then you can start moving toward that place where that sprint, that very first sprint is going to be amazing. So a good example is this show. This show, in order to prepare this show, we actually started off with a sprint zero. And then we jumped into sprint one, sprint two, sprint three, sprint four. But after the show, after we did all the setup and we had our first show, we actually started our sprints. So we had a sprint zero for about a week or so. And then we had our sprint one last Wednesday. And that sprint one is going to end this Wednesday, and we'll start sprint two. But we were doing things to pull together the basics of what we needed, like getting more volunteers for the show, making sure we had some product backlog items to work through, understanding what the DoD is, getting some of the processes together, and these kind of things we will continue to work through, right? So we're doing all these little nuanced things to actually help us prepare for that very first sprint. So for me, I'm also going to take time just to really get to know people. I'm really going to get to know people. The best thing you have in your corner is going to be the individuals that exist there. And getting to know them is going to help you tremendously every single step along the way. So these are kind of the first steps that I would take. So Mesa, is that any other questions in terms of that? Does that help? Because that gives you an idea of how to kind of start moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. So, what I understood is that you recommend to do a sprint zero and kind of observe, right, how the team handles the scrum within the team, and then maybe do some shadowing, kind of communicate with other scrum masters and maybe see how they work.
Now,
But it's definitely, yeah.
and here's the deal. Let me just rephrase that because that's not exactly what I said, and I want to make sure you're real clear on it, okay? I don't want you to
Hmm.
sit back. By no stretch of the imagination do I want you to sit back. I don't want you to sit back and just observe. I want you to take action. And when I say observe, yes. Make sure you observe, make sure you get to know people. But the problem is if you don't reach out, they probably ain't going to reach out to you. So I want you to take initiative. I want you in this very beginning to take that initiative to kind of make sure you're getting to know them as much as you can. So,
Hmm.
you take COVID, for example. A lot of people are having problems with starting new gigs with it being COVID, but that's not an excuse because if I'm starting a new gig, the moment they give me whatever communication tool we're using, like for example, if we're in a Slack or Teams in terms of Microsoft, then I know when people pop up online. I can see them when they're online. I literally can see them when they're online. And guess what I'm gonna be doing while they're when they pop up? Hey, how you doing?
Talk to
How's
them,
your day
yeah.
going? Right? Because I am getting to know them, and I do want to get to know them in a non-formal, well, in a formal yet a non-formal way. You're at work, so there's a formality to it, but in as a non-formal way as I can. But that is going to be me reaching out. That is going to be
Hmm.
me diving into them and pouring into them, if that makes sense. So I'm not telling
Hmm.
you to sit back at all. Please don't sit back. This is your the way you begin is going to shape everything else moving forward. If you
Hmm.
actually go in there and you sit back as a scrum master and you're not addressing things as a scrum master, they're going to think that's the way you're going to be the rest of the time.
Mm.
Now, I am not saying this though. I am not saying go in there with a hammer like this
Yeah,
is the way
that's
we do
that's
scrum.
what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to be too forceful or conflicting and kind of come with my vision of what Scrum is when they already have established their ways of doing things. So
But
that's the
but
problem.
but here's how you work with that. You can actually just have a training session. You can actually just
Hmm.
have a session where you say, let's talk about Scrum, people. Let's talk about Scrum.
Hmm.
Let's talk about what you do here, right? I remember when I worked at Motorola, had some people that I hadn't worked with before, and I had teams that I had never worked with before. You know, I'm real good at going in and saying, look, hey y'all, I'm the newbie here. You know, teach me what y'all know. Teach me Scrum. Can one of y'all teach me Scrum and what y'all are doing here so I understand? And somebody is going to volunteer and be like, yeah, this is what we're doing. This, and we're doing this way. Yeah, we do that. Yeah, we do this. Yeah, we do that. And they're going to explain all these things to you, right? But that will give you an idea of
Hmm.
what is happening on the ground with them right now. If you have things like that happening with them on the ground right now, and they're saying, you know what? Hey, we really don't have daily scrums. There could be a reason why. Now I know in my heart they should be, right? I know I'm saying to myself, they should. The manifesto says that there should, right? But the question is, what's the reason behind why they're not?
Mm.
They may not be able to express that to you. They may not be able to. Okay.
They may say to you, well, we didn't get any value out of it, right? And now I know I got something I need to dive into and make sure that I investigate now. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, they could have daily scrums that's lasting 30 minutes. Okay, no problem. I understand. I get it. Y'all having them for 30 minutes. Do I start one drastically change what they're doing if they already been doing it that way? I don't know. Do you think that's a good idea to do that?
No, not at the beginning.
Still
Definitely
there?
not.
So hopefully y'all can still hear me. But if it's me and I'm walking into a team that's doing daily scrums that's taking 30 minutes, I know it's not right. I know that they probably don't want to do that. Now my question becomes, why are they? Why are they doing it that way? Is there something that I'm missing? It could be that there's management that's in the meetings. It could be that they are solving all kinds of problems in the meeting, and that's the way they're getting value out of it, right? It could be that somebody's in there reporting, right? It could be something absolutely normal in terms of how they evolve things. And do I want to stop it? What's the reasons and logics behind what they're doing? Not necessarily. I can't say that's what I would want to do. But I would want to see what's happening. I would say to him, look, daily scrum's only supposed to be 15 minutes, but you know what though? I'm not sure what you all are doing, but I would like to see what you're doing. I would like to observe what you're doing and see what's really going on so I can get an idea of why they're doing it. Because a lot of times, what am I looking for? I am looking for the why, the why, the why, the why.
The root
In
cause.
lean, we have this concept called the five whys. And you don't normally have to get to the fifth why in order to get to the root cause of why it's happening, right? But I'm trying to understand the logic behind what they're doing and the underpinnings, the reason why they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. So it is super important for me to understand. But how do I get that understanding if I come in like a bull in a china shop? And you know what I mean. You got all these delicate, pieces of glass, and some bull walks in there and knocks everything down. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that scrum master. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be any of that. I want to be the one that gets an understanding, see why you're doing it. And here's the thing that I always have to remember: I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. Okay. The reason why I say that to you is because of this. Back in the day, Scrum used to have a artifact called the burn chart. And that artifact was, the statement is you do everything that's in the Scrum. If you're not, you're doing Scrum butt, right? That's the statement. So we're always trying to get everything done in Scrum. And time again, I would have these teams that would not get any value whatsoever ever out of the actual daily Scrum. Not the daily Scrum, but the actual burn chart.
Mhm.
And so I started feeling guilty about it because I would make teams do it. I'd be like, it's what we do in Scrum. We're going to do it. And then it's not getting updated. They're not using it for anything. It's not being helpful whatsoever. And, I'm in, but, I got this debate in my mind like, hmm, I'm the Scrum Master. We should be doing all of what Scrum says to do. And we are, but they don't get any value out of this particular thing. Hmm, does that justify me doing Scrum Butt? Hmm, well, for me, it does. For me, it does. Because I have to tap into my lean side and say to myself, look, if there's no pull for it, why push it on them? If they're not going to go grab it and get value out of it for themselves, why would I just dictate it and put it on them? Why would I make them do it if they're not getting any value out of it? So this is super important. This is part of that learning process where you kind of go through what we call shuhari. You kind of start off as a beginner. You start off with you get all the formal basic stuff. You make sure you're doing exactly what the book says, right? But then at some point, you're gonna move through and get all the way to the point where you turn it into your own thing, right?
Mhm.
And you want to get to that place where you ultimately turn it into your own thing. But in the beginning, unfortunately, you're just waxing on and waxing off, and you're trying to get the patterns down, everything down, because you're new to it. And that's good. You will learn along the way. But what I don't want you to do is put yourself in a position where that team hates you. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's true. Absolutely.
I still see
Thank you
you
so
here, so
much.
can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's great advice.
I can't
I
hear you,
think
but that's okay. I'm gonna continue.
I will get the
But the
Scrum Master.
idea is the same. So there's a lot of things to do when you begin. And I mentioned quite a few things because I had few people, many people in the comments for the past shows. They were asking and saying, I would like to hear more about Scrum pilots. I'd like to hear more about this. And I'm going through extra explanation to make sure that you have an understanding of this and what's happening, right? Um, when you go in there and you are a tyrant, they will reject you, especially when you start looking at, you know, in in less than a month, February 11, okay? February 11 through, what do you call it? 13, okay? The Agile Manifesto has its 20th anniversary. Absolutely has its 20th anniversary. And it becomes one of those things where we are going to be doing this. Okay, we're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of that Agile Manifesto. Okay, and that Agile Manifesto is probably where you want to look at because it becomes our objective to live and breathe the values and principles of the Agile Manifesto. It becomes that, and you can use that as a guideline to actually help you moving forward. And that would be really important for you to do, to think about that, to deal with that, to do it, right? Because when you do that, is going to help you and help you with them. Now, Mason, that you have muted yourself on my end, so I can't unmute you. Um, but does this help? Is this the
Yes, it did.
right direction? Is this what you were thinking about?
Yes, yes, it did.
Definitely having technical difficulties here because I see that you have unmuted
Oh,
yourself, but I'd love to hear you, but I don't hear you. Um, so I'm going to click something here and double check and make sure that I'm not going crazy here, but that's okay. Sometimes you have some problems here and there. Oh, let me do that and see if that helps.
can you hear me now?
Okay. So again, it is one of those things where being brand new isn't a bad thing. Being brand new is should be super exciting for anybody that's starting off on this brand. I mean, if I could go back to being brand new, that's if I go back to being brand new, having the knowledge I have now, that would be amazing. But that doesn't happen, right? So if I can go back and think about how different things are right now versus how they were in the past, you have way more support. You have way more things that you have available to you in today's world than what I had to me back in the day. Scrum is way more clear at this particular point. It was less clear. There were other things involved in Scrum that didn't always add as much value. So Scrum has continually evolved over time. So that's been a good thing for us. That's been an amazing thing for us. So it's just one of those things that, I continue to kind of look forward to. And I love to see the future changes that will happen with Scrum. So I think I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for this advice. It's amazing.
Okay, you are so very welcome. Look,
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your day. And maybe we'll see you next time. Okay?
Yeah,
Let me know
for
how it
sure.
goes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Obviously, we having a couple difficulties there. Don't understand why we're having these newfound difficulties, but I guess it happens sometimes. So, and only half of my screen is showing up now, but that's okay. We'll make sure that we resolve these things in the future. But right now, at least I can see you on half my screen, right? So we'll deal with that later. So, that being said, I do want to talk about something in terms of that, okay? Because this is where it becomes really, really important if you are a newbie to if you can do anything, try to find a way to associate yourself with others that have been doing this. Now, I say that for many, many reasons, okay? Others that have been doing this will find ways to actually help you. And helping you is important and critical to your journey. Don't think to yourself that you are all alone on this journey without anyone to help you. That is not the way that it is. That is not the way that it should be. And if you don't at all have anybody to help you, please, please, please find a community to join. Find a community to join. Now, why do I say find a community to join? The reason why I say that is because by having a community that you join, that is going to help you. So, local meetups will help you. People at local meetups are there to more than likely hear a topic. Most of the time at a meetup, people show up and they listen to some speaker talk for 20 minutes. But guess what you have during the rest of that time? Rest of that hour that you're there? You have an opportunity to network. You have an opportunity to get to know people. You have an opportunity to work, not necessarily work through some things, but you have an opportunity to get to know some people that you ultimately can ask a question to of. There are groups available. There's a couple of Scrum groups on LinkedIn. Just look up Certified Scrum Master Group and join the biggest one, right? You'll find groups on Facebook. You'll find groups everywhere, especially virtually nowadays, because people are still doing things, right? So it's not that all the stuff has disappeared. People still have the need to share information and kind of work through things with each other. So it's really, really important for you to actually do that. Now, the reason why I say that is because a Scrum Master is on a forever journey of learning. Well, let me back up. When I think about a Scrum Master, me as a Scrum Master, I am on a forever journey of learning. Okay. And every month, religiously, I actually complete a book. Every single month, I complete a book on some topic. And the thing about it is that I want you to know that those topics are not necessarily related to Scrum. A lot of times, those topics are, things that could actually help me with communication, with other things that actually exist. So it is one of those things where it is a major plus if I continue to grow and learn along the way. So this is a good thing. Okay. I actually have someone else that is ready to join us. So I am going to go ahead and bring us there. Make sure that they are here to join us. Okay. Johnny, welcome, welcome, welcome.
No, thank you. Oh, yes, Devin. I
Oh,
have
let me
a
switch
real
this
quick
over.
question in regards to where or how would you strike a balance between planning and actually doing? 'Cause a lot of times we do a whole lot of planning up front, but if you don't, because we still need to get stuff done.
Yeah, yeah. That is it's an interesting thing for that one, Johnny. And I say that one is interesting for a reason. Because people do get caught up in the thought process that we have a tremendous amount of planning that actually happens. And I have a tendency to agree completely that there is a ton of planning that happens in the Scrum world. Now, when I say that to you, I say that for a reason. When you think about Scrum, you're going to plan way more than you've ever planned in Waterfall, period. It's just a part of what happens, it's just a part of what we do. Time perspective, it is super accurate that we plan more than anything else. Okay. Now, but according to people, planning plans are going to change. So planning, the activity of planning is really super important. Now, if I was to say to you, one of the advantages that you have available to you to help battle the time we spend in planning is time boxing, right? When it comes to Scrum, you only really have one planning meeting, and that meeting is sprint planning. Let's assume you're doing a 2 week sprint. The max time for a 2 week sprint is 4 hours. Uh, I guarantee you, if I was to ask the people that are watching right now who have experienced sprint planning and have done 2 week sprints, how long they spend in sprint planning, write that in the chat for me. How long do you actually spend in sprint planning? Now, for me, in a 2 week sprint, I spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Now, why do I spend an hour to an hour and a half? Because I've prepared. I've prepared. So, the number one thing to help you with planning is going to be your preparation. So, a good thing that can help you, and I don't always like to say this because people don't use it in the right way, is product backlog refinement. What is product backlog refinement? It is the preparation of the product backlog for the future. That's all it really is. But one of the things that you can do is get your product backlog items more prepared for that future. Now, the idea is this though. If you spend time in refinement and you're getting things ready for the future, that means when you get into planning, things have already been prepared. So here's a trick that I use. One of the biggest problems that we have is product owners that aren't prepared or even may not even get it. They may not be writing their own product backlogs. They may have a business analyst that is supporting them. You may have all these kind of things that are going on and really happening. Okay. But here's the question. How can you use that refinement meeting to help you? Well, truth is, what I do,
Is I teach people to work things a certain way. I teach people to work things a certain way. So, some people on this call have actually, probably some people that's watching the live have probably experienced this with me. I actually will work closely with the product owner. Now, why am I working closely with the product owner? To help the product owner get product backlog items that are ready for the refinement meeting. Because I try my best not to use the refinement meeting as a way to prepare product backlog items. I try to use the refinement meeting as a way to approve product backlog items. Now, why is that important? Because that's going to give you a couple of advantages. If you actually work with your product owner outside of refinement and you're working to prepare things along the way. Excuse me. One of the advantages you get is this. You have clean requirements going into refinement or into sprint planning. That's the natural benefit. The secondary benefit is this. In that refinement meeting, what you're now doing is bringing a requirement that is ready to go. It is ready to go as you can make it. And by bringing that requirement that is ready to go, you just switched the whole purpose of why the team is there. Now, I would make sure that I bring my development team in for this refinement meeting. And what is your development team doing at that point? They get to ask questions about this clean requirement. they will tell you whether that requirement is ready to go into a sprint if they have enough information. Now, most development teams will also say to you, you know what, let's go ahead and estimate it too, right? If you're estimating, they'll probably estimate it too, right? Right there in a refinement meeting. And I'm okay with that. I have no complaints about that. I do have issues with it sometimes because I like to have separate estimation meetings. But here's the deal, they're seeing it for this very first time now in a refinement meeting. So that means the second time they see it will be where? In sprint planning. So now they have a requirement that they've seen that is pretty much a ready to go requirement. They've seen it once. Now the second time they've seen it, it's going to be easier for them to make a plan because they may have come up with a solution on how they're going to solve that problem. So now it's just a different thing that we're doing. It's a different thing that we're dealing with now, which is an important, it's a very important step for us to take because it starts to change things a little bit. It starts to change things tremendously because now what's happening is your planning sessions start to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, what's going to happen is your team will get used to, they will absolutely get used to getting planning done in an hour. They will. They'll get used to getting planning done in an hour. Now you're going to have to fight them in a different way because they're not going to want to plan more than an hour. And now you're not going to have enough time in planning, okay? But the one thing you will never be able to get away from, Johnny, the one thing you will never be able to get away from is all the planning that we do, because that planning is important for us to bring in as much just-in-time information, the latest, greatest information into what we're doing. So it is one of those really amazing benefits to what we do. The question is, when you are in that planning session, how are you treating it? What are you doing with it? Are you using it as effective as you can for the time that you're spending together? And that's where the rub comes in for most teams. So I know people always will complain about planning. I've never had too many teams. If I go inside of an organization, I'm always going to get a team or two that's going to complain about planning. It's just always going to happen. But I would guarantee you that anybody in here that has been doing Scrum would probably agree with this statement, that the teams that they have that are effectively doing Scrum, effectively delivering without having a bunch of rework, have probably don't spend enough time planning. Probably don't spend enough time planning. Okay? So it's just one of those things where it is something that's difficult to address, but as long as you're having effective meetings, most people aren't gonna riot or have any crazy problems in terms of how you move forward, even in terms of their complaints in that arena. So, Johnny, anything else you have on that topic? Because that planning topic is a huge thing that comes up. But does that help you?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I guess it gives me a lot to think about. I mean, some of the things that I get complaints about are, that we'll plan something out, it won't go right, and the fingers start pointing, and they're like, you get, well, we didn't plan this quite right, and or I didn't spend enough time on it, but then you get complaints from the other side that says, well, we're not doing enough, we're spending too much time planning. So that's where I was trying to figure out how to strike a balance between the two. So because obviously the product owner wants you to move faster.
Right. I have a question for you. Do you treat the sprint backlog like it's something that needs to be baselined?
Uh, it's usually done for me, but yes.
So, hence a problem, maybe an agile smell, because what you're saying to me is that you have a sprint backlog that has been planned for you. Now, who's planning it for you?
The the product owner. The product owner has a person above them kind of putting pressure on them to get a product out, something that they can show even people up further up the food chain.
Mm-hmm. So now here's my question. If I was to just peel that back a little bit, my first statement is the development team makes their own commitment, right? We would agree with
Yes.
that as scrum masters, as agilists in general. The people that do the work make the commitment. So we can agree to that. But now they
Yeah.
have powers that be that have said it's not going to work that way. Okay? So now what position do you put the development team into where their hands are kind of tied? There's not much that they can do. Okay?
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to try to address this a little different because now I need to, at least what I would do, is I would start working now with the PO. So I'll ask you, Johnny, is the PO open to working with you to help solve this problem?
I believe so, but there's a little bit of deflection where the PO will say, "I'm getting pressure that we need we need something more than we're providing."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
So I have an idea for you that I think will help in this situation. And this is something that I would actually do. This is something that I do normally in the beginning, is what I start thinking about immediately. Um, it's almost like I want to write something on the board. The question that you have to ask yourself is this, Johnny, and I'll ask you this question. So, are you measuring return on investment?
yes,
Okay.
I think
What
that's
does that
part of the
mean?
problem.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, because
go ahead.
right, because the higher ups are looking at, well, we spent this much time, this much effort. We're expecting some return at some arbitrary point in time.
Okay. Now, here's the deal. Let's break this down so I can make sure you have a real clear understanding of something that's really important. Um, Hopefully you have heard of the 80-20 rule. I'm going to assume that you haven't. Okay? And I'm assuming that you haven't, even though I'm believing that you have. I'm assuming that you haven't just to help everybody else out. Okay? There's something that exists in the world called Paretos Law, where out of 20% of the work, you get 80% of the value. Okay? And so you want to find that 20% that gives you the most value. That way you can maybe redirect the other 80% of the time to other things that are more valuable than the stuff that you would have been doing anyway. Okay? Now, in our world, we have concepts that exist. Let's just call these concepts requirements that fit into a sprint, user stories, and requirements that don't necessarily fit in a sprint, even though there are other rules around that, epics. And there's normally a parent-child relationship between these big requirements and these little requirements. Okay? The problem that we have in our world is we classically don't get return on investment from the little requirements. So those little requirements we classically don't get any return on investment from. Okay? We classically get the return on investment from the big requirement or the epic. Okay? So, hear me and understand where I'm taking you right now. What I would want you to do with that product owner is find ways to split. When I say split, I mean break down into smaller pieces. To split those big requirements, those epics, in a way where you can get the 80, you can find that 80-20 sweet spot. While that smaller number of items, you can get the majority of the return on investment. Now, why do I say that? Because what you can start doing is you can start filling your sprints up with the most valuable stuff that needs to be put out there. By filling your sprints up with that most valuable stuff that needs being releases, now you are heavy. You are front loading ROI in your sprints. And by front loading ROI, that means when it's time to release, they still can get the value even though you're not delivering as many items as what everybody wants to deliver. Because there's not going to be a single team on a planet that every single sprint going to get everything done. It's just not going to happen. Well, I lie. Because if they undercommit, they will always get everything done. And so you can put them in a position where they are undercommit. But that's not what I want you to do. I actually want you to work with the PO. I do want you to work with the PO. Now, I want you to work with the PO in a way where you can take those requirements and address them. Now, let's just say an example that I give in my training, okay? It's normally a simple example, which is beneficial, okay? Let's just say I have a story or an epic that is, I want to pay for the items in my shopping cart, okay? Now, you can split that based on how you're going to deliver it, and nobody would recommend that. Front end, back end, whatever. Let's just pretend like you're not going to do that, okay? But if that happens, then you got to wait till everything's done before you get the value, okay? You could split it based on, let's just say, collection of customer details, shipping information, collection of payment, processing payment. You know, all those things give you value, but guess what doesn't happen? You still have to get everything done before the customer can actually use it, before you can actually put it in front of them, right? In terms of being used. Or you can split it based on ways you're going to pay, like a credit card, a gift card, let's say cryptocurrency. Well, if you split it that way, you probably could just figure out which one of those three things the majority of your customers actually utilize. And all things being equal, I may be able to pull that one out and find that 80-20 sweet spot without doing everything. That's a simple example, but that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So the magic for you is likely going to be working with your PO to address and figure out, is there a way you can glean value out of those big requirements or epics? So and then you can make sure that when you're delivering stuff, that is the highest value stuff. Now, how is this helpful? Because let's just say you take a big requirement, an epic, and you divide it down into 5 pieces, and 2 of those pieces are the most important. That's 40%, right? All things being equal. You move those to the top of the product backlog, right?
Yep.
And then you take the next one and you find that 3 of them are the most important. That get you the value that you're looking, get you the 80-20, even though it's not an exact 80-20. You got another 5, but again, 2 of those you ain't really got to deal with. 3 of them you're gonna put toward the top of the product backlog, right? You find another epic where there's one of them gives you the majority of the value and the other 4 doesn't, right? You just put that one toward the top of the product backlog. Now, what have I done? Look, I'm not expecting to get every single epic. I'm not expecting to get everything in epic done in the first place, right? I'm never expecting to be 100% on epics, and some people do expect that. I'm expecting to get the most value out that epic and bleed it dry of value first. If they want me to do the additional stuff, I have no problem doing that, but I'm going to bleed it dry. I'm going to bleed it dry as best I can in terms of getting value out of it. So that is a very important set of steps that I would want you to take. But that is going to require a lot of focus time with that product owner. Really, really is. Okay? So Johnny, my question for you is, have you tried that?
No, I mean, that's something that I definitely am considering. I mean, building a much closer relationship and trying to work together to get the most value out of it. Because a lot of times it's like the product owner says, I need this, this, and this, and we're not really working together, and he's just kind of dictating what. Yes, it is a little frustrating. So we need to start building that relationship better and spending more time together. I think is key. Is going to be key.
Now, here's what I'm gonna ask you to do as a Scrum Master, right? I'm gonna
Yes.
ask you to put yourself in their shoes. Because you have to understand where they're sitting at, right? They have management that's saying, I need this right now. They have a team
Right.
that's not delivering that right now. And they're sitting in the middle with no control, man. This is the position that they're in. They're in the
Yes.
middle with no control. So what do you expect them to do? They can't really go to management and say, no, no. They can't really do that, right?
Yes.
So now
Correct.
the only thing that they can do is take it out on the team. So understand the position that they're in. And now the question is, if you was in their position, what would you do? It's likely you would do the same thing that they're doing. We
Yeah.
have this tendency to think to ourselves and to be in our little scrum world and be doing all our little scrum stuff and think nobody else exists on the planet, and that's just not true. But just think about the position that product owner is in. I've been given this money to get some ROI, and we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that at all. And you know what? It doesn't look like we're going to get it done. We keep having all these problems. They're still not delivering. They keep making commitments and they can't get that stuff done for real. So now you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drive them. I'm going to be a tyrannical project manager, and I am going to take them and pull them to this goal, right? Most management already know you ain't going to get everything done. They already know that. So the idea though is if you start working closer with that product owner, and if I was you, so an experiment, okay? I would go ahead and actually think about a future sprint, maybe after a particular release or whatever that is, and make that future sprint that time we're going to try these different types of requirements, this different way of splitting things, okay? So, and then you're not under pressure for the very next sprint. So, and then you kind of start preparing yourself for, kind of almost letting a little bit of that pain go at some future date. And that way you're not turning everything over at one time. So I think if you run that experiment, you go and get to know that product owner better. You spend some time with that product owner in the world of requirements. It does mean you probably will have to understand the product a little bit better. It does mean you're probably gonna have to figure out how to help with and guide them through. One of the things that I will make sure is available publicly for everybody is we created a splitting strategies guide that actually has 11 different strategies on splitting epics. And that might be helpful for you. Okay.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because there's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to digest. I mean, we talked about quite a bit of stuff. So, no, absolutely, there's some really good points in there, and
Okay.
I'm going to try to incorporate that into into managing the project with the product
Okay.
owner.
Great. Johnny, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and come back and let us know how it goes, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you,
Thank
Devon.
you. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, everybody. Let me just switch this up for a second here. We're in a good place now. We're gonna close out the show in just a second, but I do want to just go back to Johnny for just a second, okay? Johnny has a dilemma that a lot of us don't pay attention to. And I was a Scrum Master starting in 2005. And the truth of the matter is, I didn't think product owners were valuable at all until like 2012. Okay? So understand, I spent like almost 7 years really almost ignoring the product owner and saying, look, man, just give me a warm body that can write requirements. I don't really care. I just need a warm body that can write requirements. And that's the way I treated my product owners. Because classically, I was involved in information technology. And classically, in the IT world, there's a separation with business folks. They work in some other world. People had these different reporting structures and everything else, right? And so my statement to you is don't do what I did. Don't do what I did. Pay attention to your product owner. The truth is, all of your agility, I say the majority of your agility, begins with your requirements. And the way you're writing those requirements, how you're phrasing those requirements, how you split those requirements will have a huge impact on your agility moving forward. It will have a huge impact on your agility moving forward. Okay? So, on that note, I'm going to say, look, this has been a pleasure. I apologize for the audio issues and everything else. I don't know. Everything's set up the same way it was last week, but for some strange reason, things just hiccup today. I'm going to blame Martin Luther King because he's an alpha and I'm a Q. So I'm going to blame him for that. But the idea, though, is that we've had a good show. We're going to be back here next week, same time, same exact time, 8 o'clock on Monday. And then I'll make sure that we let you know when we're going to be off so you don't show up. And I'm sending emails out to everybody that's subscribed. So if you have anything along the way, look, do me a favor. Have a wonderful week. Do me a favor, stay safe. I know there's a lot of things happening this week, okay? But stay safe out there. We got a lot of things happening in this world. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you. I will see you next week, 8 o'clock. Enjoy. Come with your questions. See you next time. Thank you so much.